And today I'm going to tell you about some lost Star Wars items that maybe one day will be found. First, I'm going to start telling you about one that was partially found. That's right, the actual prop from Star Wars, A New Hope that is, of the Death Star. And this thing was lost for years, but then it just turned up in an antique store. Can you believe it? Although it was found and now sits in the home of Star Wars collector Gus Lopez, the centerpiece radar dish is still missing, probably thrown away years ago. Luckily, the one on display at Gus Lopez's house has a custom-made radar dish, so you don't have to see the Death Star with a big hole in it. But who knows, maybe one day it will be found. What about a lost prototype? Well, here it is, a walkie-talkie that looks like C-3PO. This one was seen in some of the early Kenner promotional photos as a soon-to-be-released toy. But the toy was never released, but the prototype of it, or the little kid holding it, has never been found. Although one did appear for sale way back in the early 90s in Collector's Toy Shop magazine. But was it really for sale back then, or did someone just list it trying to get some attention? Chances are the prototype was probably thrown away by Kenner years ago or recycled to use for other parts. This one, well, I guess it's kind of Star Wars related. It's a land speeder, but it's not just any land speeder. It's a Coca-Cola land speeder. This land speeder here that was used for parade and promotional thanks to Coca-Cola, it went missing in the early 80s. But then years later, it was found just sitting in a police station's impound lot, and it was bought by a collector. But then, all of a sudden, it went missing, and today, it's still lost. No one knows what happened to this land speeder. Chances are it's out there somewhere in someone's garage. Being that it was lost for years and then found and bought by a collector and then mysteriously went missing, it's got to still be out there. So if you ever see a Coca-Cola land speeder sitting in someone's garage, it just might be this one right here. Talking about missing Star Wars cars, well, look at this car. Yep, a Star Wars Toyota. This thing was given away. And guess what? The winner took it, drove off with it, and was never seen again. What happened to this thing? Who can have a car this cool and not show it off? Someone had to be riding around town with this thing throughout the 80s. But the giveaway does have ties with the mob and murder. Like the land speeder, I've done a whole full video on this. You want to check it out. But it's one eerie, strange story. But sadly, it's never been found. Star Wars collector Steven Sansweet says he remembers seeing an ad for it in a collector's magazine in the late 80s. Although that ad has never been surfaced. Hey, I guess this is a bonus for you, a missing Star Wars ad. And a lot of experts have said the Star Wars paint job is probably wore off by now, so if the car is still out there, it's sitting in some old abandoned lot with no one knowing it once was full of Star Wars graphics. Boba Fett is by far one of the most popular Star Wars characters, and even he has a missing prototype. This Kick Bash prototype of Boba Fett by Kenner was seen in a lot of promotional photos. If you have the vinyl carrying case, he was even photoed in the insert, showing that Boba Fett could fit inside the carrying case. And like everything else in this video, it's lost over time. A lot of the old Kenner prototypes have been found. This one here hasn't. And it's a shame because this is a cool looking figure. As you can see, it's made out of different parts. Some C-3PO parts, even parts from a Shogun warrior. So what happened to this thing? Although no one really knows, it most likely was taken apart, and those parts used to make it was used to make other prototypes. Or it was probably just trash. Being one of a kind, sadly it was probably trash or reused to make other prototypes. And let's look at one more prototype. And it's a very cool one also. Kenner was thinking about releasing late in the Star Wars toy line a blockade runner. Sadly, with Kenner counseling the Star Wars line in 1985, we never got the blockade runner. But there was a prototype made, as you can see here. This thing looks awesome. I don't know why Luke Skywalker is popping out of the blockade runner. Doesn't sound too safe for a ship flying in space. But this thing is awesome. It would be cool to have. Hear that, Hasbro? Give us what we never knew we always wanted as a kid. But again, a lot of prototypes have been found. But this prototype has never turned up. Does that mean it's not out there? Not exactly. There was a prototype for the Star Wars droid ship, the White Witch. And it was missing for years until it was discovered a few years ago. So who knows, maybe this prototype of the blockade runner is out there in someone's collection. Let's take a look at some lost Star Wars media. Was there a Kenner commercial for the mail-away figure of Anakin Skywalker? Well, a lot of people claim to have seen it. Internet posts going as far back in the 90s describe seeing it, and every one of them describes seeing about the same thing. You think with so many descriptions, this thing has to be real. And Kenner did a commercial announcing the mail-away figure for every other figure released, so why not Anakin? Now you're thinking if this was a commercial, it would have been on YouTube by now. Someone would have had it. Well, for years, people claimed that they saw a Power of the Force commercial with the Power of the Force collector's coin floating in the sky. And a lot of people laughed them all, saying they misremembered and Kenner never did a commercial for the toy line. However, a few years ago, that Power of the Force commercial did pop up on YouTube. So who knows, maybe there was an Anakin Skywalker mail-away offer commercial and it will one day just show up on YouTube. Well, that's a look at some lost Star Wars item. I did a video on some of these getting more detailed about them. Maybe you can even help find them. So check out the new playlist, Lost Star Wars. Who knows, maybe you can help solve a mystery.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.